Cyberbrainer is an online training platform designed to help individuals and teams learn the latest technologies and become certified professionals, producing a comprehensive learning experience.
Now let us look about what HL7 is. If you want to know about HL7, the best place that you can go is hl7.org. So the hl7.org website itself. So what is HL7 about? So hl7.org is the website of HL7. Right. So if you look at about HL7, what does it say? It says that it was founded in 1987. It is a not-for-profit, unsacred and standards-developing organization. It is an SDO. It has basically been developing standards from 1987. What is their vision? A world in which everyone can securely access the right healthcare data when they need it. And its mission is to provide standards and to empower global health data interoperability. Now the question comes is, why is it called as HL7? HL7 actually stands for Health Level 7, and the Level 7 refers to the 7th layer of. Refers to the 7th level of International Organization Standard. 7-layer OSI standard. So if you search for an OSI standard, OSI standards model, you will see that. So if you look at the 7 layers, physical data layer, network layer, transport session presentation application. It is in the 7th layer where the standard works. Because it is working on the 7th layer. That is why they named it as HL7. Version 2 is. Version 2 says that you need to follow only about the application layer. It is normative for 7th layer. For the remaining layers, it really doesn't care as to how the remaining layers work. But to a certain extent MLLT was used, which falls a little bit within the presentation layer. So that is what. But if you look at the latest standards which has come up, it does talk about the 6th layer too. Now let us talk about V2. So V2 was a very old standard. It is a very old standard. It was actually. It started getting developed. V1 was developed in somewhere in 1983. And where a bunch of doctors came together and they created, and this version 2 was published a few years later. So, whatever, the standard that we are learning today is decades old. Now you have to understand the scenario in 80s and 90s was very, very different from what it is today. So at that point in time, storage and transmission of every byte was very, very expensive. Later during the program, you will understand you will appreciate as to why the data was in a particular format. So, having said, that is V2 the only standard, is HL7 the only standard, or HL7 V2 is the only standard. If you look at this, if you look at Intrude 2 standards, there is something called as primary standards. Then there is something called as clinical document architecture. This is, in a way, V3. Clinical document architecture products. One of the things that came up was in terms of CCDA documents. And next is FHR. FHR is the latest standard. When I say latest standard, it is just 10 years old. So you compare that with that. Has been working from 1989. So, and it is evolving as we talk. So these are not the only standard. There are other standards also, like Arden syntax. Arden syntax is basically used for representing clinical knowledge and to write clinical rules. One example could be is that if patient's temperature is 101 degrees Fahrenheit, give this particular medication. If it goes below 100, give this particular medication. So you can write clinical rules in a standard way using Arden syntax. Another one is called a CCAO, or clinical context. When you have had multiple applications working with each other. We are talking about quite a few years ago. How will the same context be retained from one application to another application? Let us say, if a doctor opens the electronic medical record and from the electronic medical record he wants to look at a particular radiology image, so when he moves from EMR to a radiology information system his credentials should be passed. And also if he has already opened a patient, that patient context also should be passed. So that was defined in CCAO. But of course, with today SSO CCAO is slightly becoming irrelevant. Single sign-on becomes much more easier. We are all aware of what a single sign-on is. When we go try to sign on to various free applications, including Zoom, we use our Google ID rather than giving our credentials again and again, and again. So you would have seen signing with Google. So that is a single sign-on. So those are the other healthcare standards. So how would you download the standards document? You will basically log in into. You can create an account. This is a free account. What you can create. And once you create an account, you can go to standard and then download the standards over here. So how does the standard? How does the? Let me just open up one standard and show you. So this is the chapter 1. What it would look like. Right. So the entire standard has chapters. Chapter 1 is Introduction and Chapter 2 is called as Control. So these are the two main chapters one has to understand. What we will try to understand as part of the first few courses. Once you have downloaded this standard, let me try to show you. We can create an account like this. You basically have to fill in some basic information. You fill in your first name, last name, email. And then there are other bunch of fields, what you have to fill in, a phone number and as well as credentials. Once you do this, you will be able to log in, okay. Once you are able to log in, you can go into the Standards tab and then download. You will get a screen where it will say whether you want the entire standard in Word document or whether you want in PDF document. You can choose whatever you want and download that. So in the next, once you have downloaded the PDF files, this is how it is going to look like in your system. You will see that you have Chapter 1 Intro, Chapter 2 Control. 2a is Data Types. 2b is Conformance. 2c is Code Tables. And Chapter 3 is Admin. Then you have Orders. Some of them. We will look into it. We will see some of the chapters in the next session. So my expectation is, please go register yourself and download the version 2.8 or 2.5, whichever. More or less all of them look similar, at least for the initial state.
Please do like, share and subscribe to our channel.